I've lost well over $50,000 making dumb mistakes when I first started wholesaling real estate, and the worst part is I didn't even know they were mistakes until after the fact. In this video, I'm gonna go over the 10 mistakes you need to avoid when you're just starting real estate to ensure that you do not lose the same $50,000 I did. Mistake number one that you need to avoid is chasing the wrong properties. Just because you can get a good deal on a property does not mean you're gonna be able to assign the deal and make any money. And to be honest, with beginners getting into this, I see this happen all the time, where they go get some super rural mobile home, or they get a piece of vacant land that's too small to build on, or something like that buyers just don't want. Now, one of the main ways to avoid this is actually by building up your buyers list first. You need to understand what your buyers are looking for so that you then know what to target. Because if you have buyers that say they want single family homes in these zip codes, and then you send them a piece of vacant land or agricultural land out in the middle of nowhere, no one's gonna have any interest in that piece of land. So the biggest way to avoid that first mistake is build your buyers list first, talk to them, understand what their buying criteria is, and if you guys want a good script on how to do that, there's a free cash buyer script down in the description below. Moving on to mistake number two, this one actually ties right back into mistake number one, and that is not knowing what a good deal looks like. Even if it's in the right location, if you have the numbers locked up wrong, if you get the wrong after repair value or the wrong rehab estimate, it doesn't matter that you got a contract signed because the deal's not good. If your approach when getting into wholesaling is just sign a sheet of paper with the homeowner and cross your fingers and hope, you're never gonna get deals closed. What you want to do is you wanna, again, talk to the buyers and understand how they run their numbers. How do they estimate their ARV? How do they estimate their repair costs in that specific market? And then based on those numbers, how do they come up with their offer price for the actual property itself? So when you're talking to your buyers, not only do you need to understand where they buy, but you also need to understand what they buy and how they run their numbers. Way too frequently, people just lock up a contract and just cross their fingers and they say, I think someone's gonna buy it. It seems like it could be a good deal. That should not be your approach. You should be able to say, I know 100% these numbers are correct. I know I can get this sold. Now all I have to do is get in front of the buyers that I already have. The disposition process, which is selling the deal to the buyer, should be pretty easy because you only lock up good deals. And one of the great things that you can say to your buyers when you're building up your buyers list is ask them, again, what it is they look for, how they run their numbers, what type of property they buy, etc. But then also, when you're asking them how they run their numbers and all these kind of questions, you want to let them know that say, hey, when I send you a property, I'm going to make sure that it meets your criteria. Now, the benefit of that is a ton of buyers get sent bad deals all the time from wholesalers that do the whole cross your fingers thing and hope. You want to differentiate yourself from the competition, from the other wholesalers, by only sending good deals so the buyers know to pick up your phone call and to respond to your text and respond to your email when you reach out to them with your next deal. Moving on to mistake number three is chasing after unmotivated sellers. This is gonna be one of the biggest time wastes for you, and you're gonna be playing a game of follow-up for months and months and months, and they're gonna keep dragging you along saying, oh yeah, like let me think about it, let me do this, let me do that. If someone genuinely wants to sell, and you guys agree to a price, they should be good to sign. It should not take them 6 months to sign a contract if they told you that they want to sell and that they are motivated. So when you're talking to these motivated sellers, one of the questions I want you guys to ask is say, hey, Mr. Seller, if we can agree to a price that works for both you and I, are you ready to move forward with an agreement today? If they say no, if there's another objection as to why they wouldn't be able to sign that, overcome that and then bring it up again. And you should be able to understand if a seller is truly motivated or not by going through all the proper questions with them. Understanding the 4 pillars, which we've gone over in previous videos. Understanding their price, timeline, condition, but then motivation is the biggest one. Why do they want to sell? If they don't have a strong why, if they don't have a strong motivation, and they're just looking for an offer, interested to see what you would say, that's not really a motivated seller. You need to dig into their pain points and understand if you can solve their pain points by purchasing their property from them for cash. Mistake number 4 is gonna be using improper paperwork for your deals. I've personally lost tens of thousands of dollars when I very first started out by having contracts that did not have the right verbiage in them to enable me to follow through on the contract. One of the biggest examples of this is a seller breach clause. What this does is it says, hey, Mr. Seller, you've read over the contract, you understand this. If you back out, you owe me money because I'm gonna spend my time, company resources, etc., putting time and effort into this property. So if your contract doesn't have things like a seller breach clause, the proper inspection period, and all those kind of important things, there's a very high likelihood that you could lose out on a lot of money. Now, we do offer contracts in the community, so if you guys are not in the group yet, be sure to hop in down below. Now, mistake number 5 carries right over from the contracts, and mistake number 5 is not having your buyers deposit non-refundable earnest money. Earnest money is just the good faith deposit from the end buyer that's basically saying, hey, I am gonna actually be the one purchasing this deal. When you're having the buyer deposit non-refundable earnest money, the recommendation is have them deposit it within 24 to 48 hours, and it has to be non-refundable. Typically, earnest money ranges from $3,000 up to $10,000, depending on the purchase price of the property. One of the biggest reasons that you want to do this and what you want to avoid is you want to avoid being daisy chained. Daisy chaining is when another wholesaler comes in and says, hey, I'm a buyer for this property. You sign an assignment with them, and then they go try and wholesale it without your knowledge. Having the non-refundable earnest money be due within such a short time window will prevent daisy chainers from trying to steal your deal and only give you legitimate end buyers. Another key thing to look out for is you need to ensure that the title company sends you a receipt of having received the earnest money from the end buyer. And you need to let the end buyer know that if the earnest money is not deposited within that time frame, the assignment contract you sign with them is null and void, and you are gonna go resell the deal to somebody else. On to mistake number 6. And mistake number 6 is wearing rose-colored glasses. Now, what do I mean when I say that? What happens a lot of times is beginner wholesalers, and I used to do this too, is you cherry pick the absolute best comparables to boost the ARV as high as humanly possible, and you get really conservative on rehab and say, well, you don't really need to do X, Y, Z. You do need to do those things with the rehab, and you should look at all of the comparables that have been renovated and get the average. Reason being, buyers are not gonna look with their rose-colored glasses at a deal and say absolute best case scenario is right here, because best case scenario does not always happen. So you need to ensure that when you're running numbers, you are very conservative with your ARV, so you do not take the absolute highest comp and say that's the one. You need to be able to find the 3 comparable properties in the neighborhood, take the average price per square foot of those 3, multiply that by the square footage of your property, and that then is your averaged conservative ARV. And when it comes to estimating rehab costs, you need to be realistic when you're estimating rehab costs. Again, if it's light, if it's just floors and paint, then it's light. But if the roof is 15 years old, it's not just light, now it's light plus a roof. So you wanna be sure that you're being aggressive with your rehab, so you wanna make sure you overestimate just to be it safe, just to play it safe, and you wanna underestimate your ARV, because again, buyers are gonna look at worst case scenario, most likely scenario, and best case scenario. And if you are only looking at best case scenario, you're gonna have buyers offering you way lower than what your contract price actually is. This typically happens when there's a homeowner who's dead set on a price and you're super close and you cross your fingers and it's like, well, if one buyer looks at this one comp and doesn't do this for the rehab, then the deal works. You're not gonna sell the deal. Make sure your numbers line up and be realistic with the numbers. Mistake number 7 is you're not talking to enough motivated sellers. A lot of times what happens is if you're new, you get on the phone with your first motivated seller and you're like, oh my gosh, this is it. This is the deal. I'm gonna make $15,000 on this deal. You might, but it's likely that you won't, right? If you're looking at just some rough overall industry standards for metrics as far as leads go, people that have full-time cold callers, such as us, we on average close 1 in 17 to 1 in 20 of the cold call leads. So if you are cold calling yourself or if you're doing lead generation or whatever it may be, you're not gonna close every single motivated seller. If you've gone through the whole process, you've made your pitch and they say absolutely not, it's not necessarily worth the follow-up unless there's super high motivation with some kind of ticking time bomb like an auction or a tax deed sale coming up. If the deal doesn't work for you and the deal doesn't work for them, move on, go to the next one and get in touch with the right motivated seller for your offer. Follow-up. I cannot stress this enough. If you are not consistently following up with your leads and trying to get them back on the phone or get them on the phone in the first place, I promise you're losing money. We have a deal right now at the time of this filming. It took us 27 phone calls to finally get on the phone with the homeowner. They were either busy at work, they were doing this, they were doing that, whatever the situation was. But if you're getting leads, if you're paying for them, if you have cold callers or whatever the situation may be, if you're reaching out to a lead 1 or 2 times, can't get a hold of them, and then you give up on them, someone else is gonna get that deal. So when you're first trying to get in touch with your leads or trying to get back on the phone with your leads, don't just give up. A lead is gonna stay in your system, in your follow-ups until it's a contract or it's dead, which means there's no shot they're gonna accept my offer or they sold to somebody else. Mistake number 9 is not building up a strong, reputable buyers list. Sure, can you sell a couple deals to 1 or 2 buyers? Absolutely. But those 1 or 2 buyers probably have a very specific buy box, which means you are gonna be pigeonholed into only getting that one specific type of deal. You wanna be continuously building up your buyers list. So if I were you, what you could do is every single week, give yourself a goal of say, I'm gonna add 10 new buyers to my buyers list or 20 new buyers to my buyers list. Because realistically, adding 20 buyers to a buyers list every single week would take you maybe 1 to 2 days. And if you can do 20 a week, every single week, that's 80 new buyers a month. That's 720 new buyers a year. That's a lot. So you always want to be building your buyers list so that you have more buyers with more exit strategies. Because also, again, we know that buyers have different buy boxes. For example, seller finance deals, right? We have some buyers that they're like, I want cash flow, that's all I care about. We have other buyers who are like, yeah, if it cash flows, that's great, but really I'm buying it for the tax benefits, the depreciation, etc. So if I break even, but it's a good house in good shape and it's on good seller financing terms, I'll still buy it. But if you only had the buyers that bought specifically for cash flow, you would never be able to sell those deals. So having a stronger buyer relationship, stronger buyer network is going to enable you to monetize more of the deals that you can lock up. Last but not least, mistake number 10 is overthinking. You get stuck in analysis paralysis. You're like, I need to practice more, I need to learn more, I need to do this, I need to do that. And while yes, we've talked about continuing education is always amazing and you always want to continue improving on your skill, you need to take action. One of my favorite quotes is, you can't learn how to ride a bike by reading a book, okay? You can't wholesale real estate unless you actively go talk to buyers, go talk to sellers, make offers, negotiate, and put the time in. So again, learn the basics, understand how to do the math, understand how to talk to sellers, understand how to fill out a contract, and that's it. And then just go start taking action. So right now, what I want you to do is I want you to commit. Over the span of the next 30 days, you are gonna make X number of offers and get X number of buyers. Whatever your work schedule looks like, how much time you can dedicate, maybe it's an offer a day, maybe it's 5 offers a day, 10 offers a day, maybe it's 1 buyer a day, 5 buyers a day, whatever it may be. But write that down in your phone, give yourself those goals, commit to it for the next 30 days, and watch how much progress you can make. Now that we know what not to do, in the next video, we're gonna be going over how to actually start closing deals and how to then reinvest and scale your company. So if you guys want to begin growing and scaling your wholesale real estate company, be sure to watch the next video, and don't forget to comment and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.